Hey
guys.
It works.
Somebody asked about studio tours the other day, so I thought I'd make a video about that because I thought it'd be fun.
Sorry, Sean. I just gotta log into the dues. Hey!
Guys.
Well, hey!
Somebody asked about studio tours the other day, so I thought I'd make.
Woo! And like the other ones, we gotta wait for people to show up. Don't touch my face. Don't touch my face. Get clay on my hands so I don't touch my face. Yeah. I got to take a nap this afternoon. That was different. Don't touch my face. Don't touch my face. Hi. I like living where I live, though. This is my favorite place. I'll visit the Shangri-La. Okay. We'll give people like 2 more minutes, because you know what will happen as soon as we start, and then we gotta go back through all the things that we just did, because that's how it goes. But after we get going, I won't say hi to people. I promise. I won't say hi to anybody else, and I promise that that's all I promise. That's it. That's all I got. I got one promise. So that we don't have to keep covering the same stuff over and over. Oh, well, like I said, so this was supposed to happen last night, and my Facebooks didn't do the livey bits. So without the livey bits, I couldn't do it. And Stacy, or not Stacy, Brittany went a little early. She did the whole time, whatever that is, the time zone issue. I've been really good with my time zone issues so far. Right? What did I just say? What is the exact thing that you just said? Okay, I gotta touch my face once. I got an itch. Okay, I touched it. Pants clean everything off so you're safe. Okay, so what I'll be doing today is different ways of collaring. So making things narrow and bringing them to the middle, how to practice it. Cheating? Not cheating. Cheating's like a horrible word. A non-single part way of doing it. So doing it in 2 parts. Ways that they go wrong and how to fix them, hopefully. Trimming them. How to make a chuck. I even got stuff to make a chuck, I hope. Maybe. Should have stuff to make a chuck. And I've got 2 examples. Oh, we can actually see them on the camera. So we have just the little thin necks. This is what I used to do a lot when I started to throw. Well, when I say started, like 3 years after I learned how to throw initially, this is all I made were bottle forms. I've made a lot of them. I made so many that in school I eventually got told that if I made another bottle I won't pass. So I just made a whole bunch more bottles. And actually, I just made a lot more bottles after that too. I just made a whole bunch of bottles. So this is what I probably have the most experience throwing anything of, are bottle forms like this. So I figured that's what I would do for this, right? So the first thing, I'm using reclaimed clay. It is a blend of a bunch of different clays. It's nothing special in terms of, there's no magic clay here. It's just regular clay. And I'm going to put these down so I don't get them wrecked. I'm going to do the basic way first, and then I'm going to move up through the ways that I do them. So the way I teach and then the way I do are 2 different ways, and that I want a beginner to get it right away. I want to be able to collar in and go, oh, look, I did the thingy. But it's not the way I would normally do it in the studio. All right. So the centering and all that's all ends up being the same. In terms of the amount of clay that I'm using, I have no idea. The amount of clay for these doesn't matter so much. Collaring is collaring no matter how much clay you have. It's important for me to have this be a little more centered than if I was going to be making something less persnickety with the top. that if there is a little variation in density or thickness, heaviness, hardness of the clay, that'll cause twisting and other stuff. So I do center just a little bit more so that my neck becomes less of an issue. We're going to pull it all the same. We're not going to change that kind of stuff. We want to make sure that we don't get the top too thin. If the top gets too thin, we don't have a whole lot of clay to work with. But we're going to go through that when we do the mess up piece, right? So I'm going to stop pulling about there, so I get a visual representation here of what I'm leaving. So clay, and we need to have enough clay at the top to actually get to the middle. And I don't know why we have such a hard time visualizing this, so I'm going to try to get right in front of you and make a picture. So if this is our wall, right? And our wall is this close together, we only need that far to get to the middle. But if we only get to the middle, then we have nothing to go up. If our walls are this far apart and we start collaring in at this point, then they can get to the middle and they add a little bit. But if we go out to here, then they don't have enough to get to the middle. And that's where most of our issues come from, is that we don't have enough to get to the middle. So we have to collar far enough down that we can get to that center point and still have something to use. There will be a little bit of thickening as we collar in, but I don't try to rely upon that to form that shoulder and then the neck above. I'm going to do all the skirt cutting stuff now so I can shape it. I use my flexible metal rib of death for shaping. A little bit of dampness on the outside, or on the inside, scratch that, reverse it. So the inside's a little damp so that when I push, the clay moves in my fingers. And this is the basic way. I'm not going really wide. I'm not telling them about the shoulder and where the shoulder's supposed to be. I'm going to wrap all the way around. So I've got thumbs are kind of crossed. I'm going to put my fingers together and they will overlap until this part all gets smaller. Right? And I'm not going to try to talk or tell them too much about what these fingers are doing. We'll do that on the second one or third one. All right, we're going to go like that. Wrap all around. I'm going to stay below this top section. I don't want to get to the top. If I get right to the top, then it's going to want to push down. I want to stay underneath that lip and just keep squeezing in. All right, you just get smaller. And then I'm going to clean that up. So I've got finger on the inside that I can get underneath the shoulder, so that as I push in, I'm not just pushing down, I can lift it up a little bit to keep that shape, right? And I wouldn't have them go much further than this, because by George, they've made something, and let's stop. Continue to shape it. You can put your finger on the inside, press with the rib, clean up the curve, and we got a smaller necked little guy. Now we've left the opening wide enough that I can get the water out of the bottom. Removing it and everything is the same. We're going to take down, pull, scrape your hands off, pick it up. All right, so that's beginner way numero uno. We'll do how I normally do it. I got a little bit more clay here, so it'll be a little bit bigger. Am I making noises? Yeah. It's important. It's important to make the noises. It's not going to work if you don't make the noises, I think was what I heard earlier this week in the live stream land. And while I'm centering this, I'd like to give another heartfelt shout out to the Clay Buddies community. Thanks for participating, guys. For the live streamers, for even the people coming in and commenting, it does mean a lot to us. If we don't have that participation, it all feels kind of sad. But we've had great participation. You guys have. It's been a bright spot, I think, for especially the admins to see you guys enjoying this as much and participating. It does make a difference. So thank you. So next one is going to be a little more different-y, in that I want to make that top part to be thin. I want it really thin. I want to use as much of the clay as I can. I want the shape to be particular. We'll talk about what I get to. And I didn't really talk about this in the beginning here. I can see all the comments really easily, and I'm pretty good at being able to read and work at the same time. Like I said, I'm not going to say hi to people because, well, we could just fill the whole time with me going, hey, how's it going? Hi, mommy. But instead, if you've got questions, I could probably answer them. The top part, now that we're doing a little bit different here, is that we are worrying here, or I'm going to worry here, that I don't get a variation in thickness. I want the same thickness side to side, which means my pulls have to become much more gentle at the top. I want there to be an evenness, because if I make a big deep pull ring from one side to the other, the side, or the part that's thickest is going to be exactly opposite the side that's the thinnest. You'll get more of those wiggly shoulder kind of things going on. We don't want wiggly shoulders. I'm also going to make sure I get underneath the bottom more. I want to get all that clay out of the bottom. Well, Wendy, you know, I've sold my soul a few times over. It's been I've got a couple mortgages out on it, and there's just and that's so I could do this. I mean, I don't tell, like, I don't have students go blindfold or anything. I like being able to see it, but the need now is not as necessary until we get to, like, certain things, like getting that curve just right. Okay. Metal ribbing to death again. The difference with this one is going to be how I get that shoulder and what I want from that shoulder. I want the shoulder to have, I'm going to air draw. So forget what's going on below. At the top, I don't want the top to come in and point up. I want that top to come and become flat, so the neck looks like it's sitting on top of another form. When I throw them, and I've got a couple examples over here off to the side when we go to trim of different ones. Good job, Tim. In that the form is separated from the neck. So the neck is almost like a frame, the foot is a frame, and then the decoration happens in that middle section. So in terms of framing it, if the body of it looks like it's going up into the neck, it feels gross. Ugh, it's gross. I don't like it. So instead, I want it to become underneath, and the pot is sitting on it like a frame would be. Like the frames don't melt into a painting, the same way I don't want the frame to melt into the pot. On the inside, again, there's the way I would teach and there's the way I do. The way I teach is the pad of your middle finger and ring finger are going to be directly opposite of your knuckle. What I actually probably do is flatten this out so that I'm using more of this whole thing as like a rib. I don't know if you can see that profile. It kind of makes a rib that I'm pushing with, but there's that variation there. All right, rib, I'm gonna shape it. I don't want to shape the top too far out. Like I want to keep this top narrow. I don't want to have to collar in more than I need to. So I don't want to push that top further than I have to out. Make sure it's wet. See, I'm not contacting the top really at all. Rotating the rib as I shape it. so we got that kind of blank bottom. You know, we can collar in a little more with the knife. We can't really push it out much afterwards, but we got that, right? All right, top part. Again, wrapping all the way around. Except this time, I'm going to have fingers, these little guys here, pushing down at the top. So as I collar in, I'm actually kind of tunnel centering it as well as I go in. I'm going to start low enough that I can get to that middle. I'm going to be pushing up as I do this. And pushing down with my fingers. Does that make sense, right? So as I'm squeezing in, I'm pulling up a little bit so I don't collapse the shoulder. I want to collapse the shoulder on purpose. I want to do it by the dolphin. I want to get it right here, and I want to do that with control. Can't really control it as I'm collaring in. Then, as I'm doing that, this finger is on top and it's pushing down. And that keeps this all even, so I'd have to cut off less from the top to keep it even. So, in the beginning, and I still, as I'm going through and, you know, making bigger pieces or, you know, not centering enough, I will get issues in which the top becomes uneven, and I want to cut that off as soon as I can. But if I can reduce how much I have to cut off or control how much I cut off, like if I want to cut something off, that I can do that. But if I don't have to, I don't want to. I want to, all the clay that I'm throwing, I want to use. All right, so I'm going to go in here again. I'm going to push over that finger. I'm going to bring that stuff to the middle and start to establish that shoulder that goes underneath. Oh, no rewind button during the live streams. We're going to get that. Those little minutes in here. And we're going to go in here. I'm going to take our flexible metal rib of death. Get in here. I'm going to support this also so that it doesn't go back and forth. I'm going to kind of hold this so that it stays in the middle. Get in here. Get that big chunk of grog off there, right? So now the shoulder is kind of underneath that neck. I'm going to cut one of these apart so you get a chance to see. Actually, I can cut this one apart. That I don't try to leave it too much thicker, no. When you collar in, it'll thicken itself up. The only part that would get thin is that part. And it's good for asking that question because I totally forgot about that on my little list here. Is that it's so much better to get the shape that you want, not get the shape that you have to have because of how thin your piece is. I would much rather have a heavy, even as a student, you know, I would rather have a student get a heavy pot that is the shape that they want than a thin pot that's ugly. Does that make that totally, like in terms of like the timeline or the thickness line? If it's thin and awesome, that's the bar. Like thin and awesome, great. But thick and awesome is here, and thin and ugly is here, right? Like I'd rather have it be it totally makes sense. Right there, man. Perfect. Also, the shape of the piece too. If this is round, that you can get away with a lot of variation in that, or not variation. You can get away with a much thinner kind of shoulder. I'm gonna make sure I wet it. Collaring, I'm going to push in and I'm going to move up. I want to move up and I'm going to watch. What I'm watching is this corner here. I want to make sure I'm not leaning it. So I'm actually looking at this corner past to that little spot there to make sure I'm not leaning it forward or pulling it back as I move up. And it'll get to a point where I can't put my finger in anymore. Right? So I'm going to put my finger in there. And I'm going to go back in, I'm going to pull up again. But we'll get to a point where I can't put anything inside of there anymore. When it gets to that point, we got to start using tools. So, we got a needle tool. Appearance is absolutely everything. What's on the inside doesn't matter. I'm gonna take, I've got my finger on the inside, I've got my thumb and the needle tool touching so that everything works together, and I'm just gonna go and cut this top off. You can practice cutting the top off of things. Alright, so we have a top, I'm gonna touch it a little bit. And then we start using the tools, right? So I'm gonna take my needle tool, and I'm gonna get my whole hand wet. Oh, I forgot to get the water out of the bottle. This will be good, right? This will be good. So I'm just gonna stick my sponge in there. Can I get my sponge in there? Sure, let's stick the sponge in there. Okay, except it just squeezed out the sponge again. Go back to where it was. All good. No problems. We're going to take our needle tool. We're going to wet it. We're going to make sure this outside is wet. And I'm going to... This is where things get a little weird for me. And that I don't typically... like, I pull like this. I go, finger on the outside, left hand on the inside. For some reason, doing spouts, I have now moved. My right hand goes on the inside, my left hand is on the outside. I wish I could tell you why, but I can't. So I'm going to be pushing, this is from above here, I'm going to be pushing like this and like that a little bit. Against the side there. And I'm going to pull up against the needle tool. Now don't get greedy. If you get greedy, it'll twist off. We don't want it to twist off yet. I'm going to push on the top here and flare the top out just a little bit. Because once it gets too narrow, we can't play with that top much anymore. And I'm going to collar it in more. Well, Christine, it's probably because they're too thin. You could be going too fast. The clay might not be even. Those are all things that will make it worse. Yes, it's up in the, it's against me. So like if we're looking at this as a clock, I'm at like 6:30 where it's pushing. And my thumb is at 6:30 and my left index finger is at like there. Like it's at like 8 o'clock, but it's pushing back towards 6. Totally makes sense, right? So I'm gonna try to color this, that little basin a little bit more without wrecking the whole thing. And I'm gonna establish that shoulder a little better. I'm gonna go at the bottom here. Push down. We got a little bottle. Now this neck is super silly. I've got it all ready. We're gonna do the chuck and everything. So this neck is too tall for the rest of the piece. That's crazy. So we're just gonna cut it off. No, we wouldn't cut it off with a wire. That'd be horrible. We're gonna cut it off with that. And we're gonna use this base in a little bit, but I'm gonna wet it. I'm gonna move it towards the middle a little bit more. All right. Pull that off. Set that aside. We'll come back to that guy. We're not done with you yet. All right, so over here, I've got the big ball of experimentation. So when you're learning something, it's important to experiment. That if we don't experiment, then we end up doing the same thing and not learning as much. Like if you're willing to wreck it, then you learn a lot more. And the big ball of experimentation allows you to test stuff and try things, knowing that you'll never get to keep it. So to play with the big ball of experimentation, you're pretty much going to, center it like you would a throwing off the hump. You don't have to have the whole thing centered. It don't matter. But the top part you want to clean up so that you've got something to play with at the very top. And then because we're not keeping anything, we don't have to worry about any of the rest of it either. We can open it up. Doesn't matter how far you open, all you gotta do is make a wall, right? So we're gonna make that wall. And from this wall, we can play with our coning in, our countering, and all that kind of stuff, right? So we got our wall, and you can practice countering in. So one of the biggest issues is having this part too thin when we go to collar in. So I'm going to extra thin this out. We're going to noobify this top. Sorry, noobs, don't do this. Don't make it so thin. Because if it's really, really thin, it doesn't have its own internalness of strengthy poos to actually stop it from wrinkling. So when I collar in up here, and I'm going to do this is like the opposite, wrong, everything, right? So I'm at the top here. I'm going to put, we're going to do it in 3 points. I'm going to squeeze like this. I'm going to go, and it goes like that. It doesn't go in. I want it to go in and it doesn't. I'm pushing, it doesn't go anywhere. All right, we're going to wrap all the way around. I'm going to squeeze in. Oh, it starts to go, but, crap monkeys. It wrinkles. Because there isn't enough meat and potatoes in it, which is a very nice wrinkle. That it isn't thick enough to go in and push against itself to go in evenly, right? So we've got all those little wrinkles. Now, if this was our pot, we could just go below here and cut it off and start again. And on the ball of experimentation, we can keep going, right? We can try it again. Okay, so we're gonna leave it thicker. We're not gonna thin that top out, and we're gonna start lower. We're gonna go below that, and magically, we can collar in. Ah, crap! I didn't move up when I collared in. Dang it! Now when I try to go up, it pops off. That's no good either. So we gotta make sure that as we pull up, or as we go in, that we move up a little bit. And then as we move up, I'm going to go in, right? And then I'm going to, you can see the hand on the outside here? I'm going to bring the whole thing in. Look at that, the whole thing's going in. Not just the middle. the ball of experimentation, right? Yeah. So once we have something like, even if it's just a cone, we can go total cone like that, right? Another thing to play with is, like I did that the second way that I do it. I'm going to put my finger in here. I'm just going to push in and then just bring that in with my finger. All right, so we can practice that. You can just bring it in, and then because it's on this thing, it don't matter. You can practice countering in. You can go in a lot. Some people will color down. Woo! Right? And then you can cut them in half as well. So you don't have to just rip it off. You can practice that. Going in here. Balls of experimentation, right? So you can get cross-sectional views of how you're making mistakes. I'm gonna go back in there, cut that off. Boop. If it's too thick is our next thing. We're gonna wet this. Karen, I'm doing things. I'm doing stuff. I'm doing the thing stuffs. So I'm gonna make another pull. I'm gonna leave it extra thick. All this thickness, right? And I'm gonna go down a little bit lower. So with all this thickness here, when I try to collar in, that it becomes really, really thick. Super thick. And I'm gonna cut it in half so you can see that when you color in like that, it also does weird stuff on the inside. That inside was pretty smooth, but it starts to do, it starts to do things like wrinkle and fold on itself on the inside, because as you're squeezing it in, the clay has no easy place to kind of go up. You can't push up because there's too much of it there. So you got to get that right in the middleness of thickness. Oh, okay. Other ways we can get to the middle, and I'm going to do this here first. I'm gonna open this up extra wide. Oh, so bad, right? Hey, that we can. Is this going to work? This might not work. We're going to pull to the middle. So I'm going to start on the outside, and this would be for like little dome shapes, because in terms of making collared in things, it's another way to collaring in, and I'll show that on a regular piece. But we're going to squeeze here. I'm going to tilt everything, and I'm going to move towards the middle as I pull. So I'm just launching everything to the middle. It's working really well like this. Super good. And yeah, don't do the perfect thickness in M&Ms. I would guess 1 M&M is pretty good. 3/4 of an M&M is good. The right thickness is what's going to be what you need to get to the middle. So I will get this to the right M&Ms and show you what I like in terms of. Can you get this in here? Right there. That many M&Ms. I'm going to cut it off and lift it up and relate that to. I guess it depends on. Oh, she meant millimeters, not M&Ms. Close enough. So it is about a little bit more than the thickness of my needle tool is what I would typically shoot for. So I'm gonna. I guess I'll do it on this piece. We got this piece. We'll do it on this piece. We're gonna do it live on this piece. I'm gonna center it a little bit better. And I'm gonna flatten it out. Oh, regular M&M, I'm sorry. An M&M is regular. If you got peanut M&Ms, you call it a peanut M&M. Here I said I was going to be non-distractified and stuff. No, can't do it. Open it up to the outside now. All the way there. Now, collaring in something like this, there's no place to move it. So I'm going to take and I'm going to get underneath here. Now I'm going to, I really am, I'm going to just tilt everything to the side. And I'm going to throw towards the middle. So instead of throwing up, I'm going to throw to the middle. Alright, I'm going to go sideways. I'm just going to go. Alright, that's easy. Now, I can't really deal with this with the narrow opening, so I really wouldn't have gone that far. But I'm going to instead open it back up. I'm going to get my hand in here. And then I can pull up. That way I don't have to center. I don't have to pull. Right. So the reason to do this is that if I wanted to get just to the middle and make a dome, pulling a wall up and then collaring it in is just about darn near impossible to get it really well. Right? So I collar in ahead of time, and then I can kind of go in here and I can pull it up. And I'm much closer to the middle already then. Again, pushing down on that top, giving myself enough to get to the middle. Right. See, using that finger, getting underneath it, flattening off that curve. Yes, even in pottery, we can flatten out that curve. You know, hopefully our Clay Buddies workshop week has flattened the curve. I mean, it's really hard to drive around and do stupid stuff if you're staying at home, right? We're doing our bit. So then you would you take this, cut the skirt. Shape it with your thingy. Oh, what time do we got? Oh, okay, we got time. We got plenty of time. Okay, so I've got an extra ball of clay in case I really messed up. So with this ball of clay, I can answer questions before we move to the next stuff. Because we're going to have to deal with trimming these things, because there's no point in making them if we can't finish them. I hope, Colleen, that Hiroki is your teacher. That would be funny, that kind of combination thing. Have I ever done a mushroom shape on the wheel? No. Dylan Bibick is our mushroom expert at Clayscapes, and he is in charge of mushrooming. And I have tried it once and failed, and let him just do it. Hi, Timmy. All right, so I've got my hand scraped, and it's going to start at the bottom. Oh, I got to cut it. I got to cut that off. I cut that off first. Boop. Yeah, pick it up. So, questions. Oh, no, it's for pours and stuff and things. No questions. So we got one last thing, one itty bitty last thing to deal with. But I'm giving you the chance. Don't ask them later. Don't ask the throwy parts later, because weak thin spot below the collar. You just gotta leave yourself more clay. How do I stay so clean? I'm not clean. The biggest way I get dirty is actually from using my knife. Oh, as we're getting distracted here, in that when I go to cut and I go like this, the dirty part of my hand touches here and it transfers to my leg. That's the biggest part where I get dirty. That's my dirty part. Mom, how the cat is doing is not related to the lesson, so we're not going to answer that. Okay, so we got no questions. I am so amazing that I described everything that we don't have any questions. Great. So we got one last part, and that was to throw a piece in two parts. So we're going to throw the neck first. So I'm just going to throw off the hump. I'm going to make a little hole. Yes, Mom. We were talking about things relevant to pottery. I'm making bottles, Karen! This is collaring and skinny neck bottles on the description. So that's what I'm doing. I've not deviated from the initial description in the video. So we're gonna make the little neck first. Cut the neck off, right? And you would, so I mean, if I was going to be actually doing this, I wouldn't be making the neck right now. I'd make all the bases, and then when I go to trim the pieces, I would make the necks afterwards. I am necking the clay, yes. And then you can, make your bottle, trim it, and then attach the neck if you really wanted to. That's to do it in two parts. Stay. So, just another way of doing it. That's how I ended up starting making spouts for things. We're actually just cutting off the necks of pieces. So my first pours and stuff that kind of got me to what I'm doing now, where I made a bunch of bottles, and because I didn't make any teapot parts like I was supposed to, I would just cut off the top of the neck and cut off this part, and then I had my little spouts that I used. And actually, that same assignment, making the teapots, this is where, pretty much all my work came from. I would cut here, and I would just put this part on a slab, and then I put my little, doodads there, and, the little parts to make the little pours. I'm not making anything. I'm just exemplifying. And the last thing is making a chuck to trim, because we got to do the trimming part. I made a lot of bottles. Hundreds of them a week, just for fun. Okay, so we got the trimming part of this is that we need to flip this over, and flipping it over means it's got to sit on its lip or something. And you can't really just put it on its lip. So we're going to end up... Oh, we got 15 minutes, okay. I'll make sure I'm done a little ahead of time too. I'm going to go all the way to the wheel head. Open it up a little bit, and what we want is a flared cylinder to catch the shoulder of the bottles. We don't have to make it super thin either. So typically something like that, right? I'm going to scrape the slip off of it. This is if you're going to use a fresh chuck. Fresh chucks would keep everything in a wet state so that you can continue to use it and actually manipulate a little bit. And in the beginning, that's how I pretty much trimmed all my bottles. Is that I would throw a chuck for like the week or two, and after each use I would put a bucket over it and maybe a sponge on top of it, and I could save them for a week or two. Then eventually I got to the point where I was making so many bottles I had to come up with another way. I hated making these chucks and wasting them and all. So I made chucks and then I bisqued them and added stuff to them. But first we're going to do this. I'm going to torch the heck out of it. I like fire. Try not to burn your bat. And then you take your pot, and I'm not going to sit here and wait for that to go all the way, but you take your pot and you put it in, and then and you center it. But I've got the all the way done way. Oh, it stopped. Char's comet broke the internet. There we go. After I get these set up enough where I can put them upside down without hurting the shoulder, so they're dry enough, I put them in little solo cups so that they can dry upside down and this part stiffens up, right? Otherwise, we end up, having really dry tops and really wet bottoms still. So that's how we'd use that. I mean, I didn't dry it enough. We don't have the time to play those games. I'm going to take my done chuck. So this one is named Barkley. It is a bisque chuck that I have centered and glued to a plastic bat, and then in it is a piece of neoprene rubber. That's it. That's neoprene rubber. I'm say it again, because you will ask again no matter how many times I say it. It is neoprene rubber. It is a closed cell foam that I have glued to the inside of El Chucko, which is French for a throwing chuck. So we're going to take the bottle, and we can put the bottle in there, right? Next step would be to center it in the bottle. And I'm going to take my thumbs, and I'm going to just kind of tap center until it goes into the middle. For trimming, I don't have my normal tool with me. I've got a bison that I typically use, but we've got a good old dole in here that we'll use in its place. Where would you get the rubber? You got to figure out how to get the rubber. I don't know. It's neoprene. You guys are gonna have to Google that crap, right? Okay, so on the top I'm gonna push down, and that keeps it in the chuck. If it does get loose and goes like this, it doesn't get hurt. Nothing happens to it. Right? Flip it over. No problem. Right? It's so good. Woo! There's no extra tidbits. It's pretty easy, and actually I trim pretty much everything in a chuck now. Right? The shape, you just gotta make sure it flares out some. I'm gonna go, just knock down this corner. I'm gonna leave an edge for my foot, and then drop below. Ooh, see? I'm not really pushing down, and it's okay. I totally am ill-prepared for this demo. Normally I would go to a smaller tool for this part, but we're gonna keep with a bigger tool. Pro tip, if you want a smaller contact point on a wide part like this, turn the tool and you get a smaller cut. See how small it is? Small cut, wide cut. That's no good. Alright, so we've trimmed the majority of this part here. We would clean it up with a rib, blah blah blah. You do the inside. Where did it set the other one? Do the inside of your foot ring, you know, that kind of stuff. Finger burnish, blah blah blah. But, right, we only get to trim to like where the wads are or where the thing is. So we're gonna flip it over. And we can center this, right? And then we can trim this part. Woo! Because you don't need it. It's better for it to be able to move a little bit. It moving is no problemo, which is German for not a problem. That you can let it scooch. Actually, you can probably trim with it to completely off center. I mean, it's a little harder. Oh, that's not going well at all. Don't do that. I chattered. But it doesn't have to, you can let it be all loose. Wait, again? Alright. Well, I don't really do bottles much in my own work anymore. I teach it though, because other people do bottles. Okay, so what do we got? We got like 4 or 5, some more minutes between us and the next. I want the next person to be able to, everybody to switch over, get a snack, and go back to who was it? I forgot. Stacey, who's next? Is the neck? Well, yeah. If you get a neck that's too long, let's see, is this one too long? Well, this one isn't too long. But if you get one that's too long, you need to have made a bigger chuck. So, you can have two. We'll do this one. If you get it too long, you're just gonna have to get a bigger chuck. You can wet the neoprene a little bit. It'll make it a little bit stickier. Yes, I use the chuck to trim pretty much everything. For chattering, somebody asked about chattering there. Real quick for the chattering. If you hold the tool and you let the wheel spin fast enough, is this one dry enough? This one isn't dry enough. We'll go back to this guy. This guy's dry enough. That if you hold the tool in a way that it can bounce, and you let it bounce, Dylan, there's our mushroomer. So I'm gonna let it hum. Actually, can I zoom you in here? Come here, camera. Everybody going for a ride. Alright. So I'm gonna hold it. You guys can hear that, right? So it's letting that tool hum and bump. Boop. Chattering. And you can change the angle of the chatter. Oh, someone asked if I make shrooms, and I said no. We got it. We got somebody that's rocking the shroom game already. Somebody got on that game. Hashtag get on that game. I forgot to use it. Damn it. Well, it's too wet up here. Having it the right wetness too helps. We'll do it up here. We'll start up here. So if I get it going. Come on, do it. There you go. And I could turn it. And then change the angle of them. Ooh. What if it does that when you don't want chatter? Okay, let's see if we can get rid of that chatter. You just got to hold the tool at a different angle and be a little more vigilant in how you're pushing. And we can get the chatter to go away. Da, 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 da. Okay. Oh, yeah, that was a lot of... Yeah, fast fill helps. Okay, guys. That's it. We have time to get in between. Get a drink. It's Lisa, right? Is it Lisa that's next? Damn it. I forget. I don't have the schedule in front of me. But check out the next person. Again, thank you guys for participating. Clay Buddies is a pretty awesome community, and it's awesome because of you folks. And really appreciate it. Super good times. Much wow. All right, guys. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Where's the finish? Oh, we gotta hit the finish and save button. Save it.